Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Welcome back to another Hog Hoops Report. That's Kevin McPherson. I'm Evan Camico. Kevin, we'll get to the UNC Wilmington win in just a minute, but let's talk recruiting right now. The King Cotton Classic was over the last couple of days down in Little Rock and Pine Bluff specifically. What do you have on there? Keith Smart was there, you were just telling me.
Yeah, he was down there on Thursday. He's a few high major programs in the house, former Arkansas assistant, current Auburn assistant. We're also going to talk a little bit about that matchup in the SEC opener against Auburn. But you're not just competing on the court, you're competing in the recruiting circles. And so Corey Williams was there. But Keith Smart coming down on Thursday, it was the middle day of the 3-day event. And Arkansas's got several prospects that the Hogs have got offers out to and have made priorities out of. And let's start with the most pressing class when we look at high schools. We know they've wrapped up the class of 2024 with those two early period signees. But looking at 2025, Terrion Burgess, the 6'9" combo forward out of Benton, Arkansas has put eyes on him a lot over the last couple of years. When you start talking not only high school games, visits to his high school campus, then the spring and summer grassroots circuit. But he had a really good event, was named to the first team All King Cotton all tournament team, first team. And that's a big deal. Look, this isn't just some good players on a few decent teams. It is a loaded field every year. You're bringing teams from all over the country. Several of them ranked, when you look at the high school national rankings, several five-star players, not just from Arkansas, but Terrion Burgess, it says a lot. He had a 25-point game to open up the event on Wednesday night. I was there to see that. And then I was on hand on Friday when he went off. I mean, this guy, 35 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists, and a double overtime loss for Benton. It was a tough loss, but a big game for him there. And again, first team all tournament selection. Arkansas's made a priority for him. Look, I'm just going to say it, Evan. I think Arkansas's in great shape with Terrion Burgess. Ranked national number 33, according to 247 Sports, high level 4-star. Not too far off from that 5-star status, but at 6'9", long strider in transition. Long strider in the half court. When he gets by that first level guy, it's hard really to kind of size him up and understand. He's not one of those blow by you quick guys, but those long strides, he's hard to deal with. And then when he gets his upward momentum, he's going to punch it. And he's a volume rebounder. He's been a double rebounding machine throughout the season. I think only 3, maybe 4 games, less than a handful of games where he hasn't gotten double figures in scoring and rebounding both. And he's a guy, again, he's been on Arkansas's campus multiple times. I don't know how soon we hear something from Terrion Burgess, but he's got a lot of offers out there, a lot of high majors after him. Arkansas, I think, is in great shape there. One of the schools that really stays on the radar. And then other 2025 guys, when we move around the board, Jaysean Hayes is a big guard, 6'5", 6'6" guard that can play the 1, 2, or 3 down in Whitehall, right there in that Pine Bluff area. That his team participated. Keith Smart was able to see him in action. And then you've got a couple of guys out of Duncanville, Texas, where Anthony Black, the pro hog, the one and done, the 5-star, the lottery pick, where he came out of. But you've got 2 players and maybe a third. But when you look at that class of 2025, 2 guards, Caden Bug Edwards, a 6'3" guard, really crafty, slender build, slight of build at 6'3", but really quick, explosive. And then he has a lot of craft. I'm not going to compare him to Keon Minifield, but there are maybe some comparisons there, a little taller guard. But he had a 26-point game, a 41-point game, and another 20-plus point game. And he scored those 41 points when Keith Smart was down there on Thursday. And so just a huge event for him, also named to the all-tournament team down there. But his teammate, B.J. Davis-Ray, in his first season at Duncanville after transferring in from Link Academy, a guy that also, both of these guys have attended Arkansas games, have been on unofficial visits on campus in Fayetteville. But B.J. Davis-Ray, a bigger guard, pushing 6'6", strong frame, can score, shoot the 3 a little bit, really likes to get into his drive game. He'll rebound, block some shots. I mean, he's an active guy. Probably want to see a little more production from him from scoring in that event because he's capable of it. Didn't see as much of that in just this event, but a guy that's definitely been a priority when you look at that 2025 class for the Hogs and keeping tabs on him and getting him on campus. So both of those guys you keep an eye on them in addition to Burgess here out of Central Arkansas. And one of the other players for Duncanville, by the way, I got to work it in, Anthony Black's younger brother, Beckham Black, a 6-foot freshman guard, just a 9th grader, On Wednesday night, I got to see him play 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Put his team up, gave him after being down double digits at the end of the third quarter, hits a couple of free throws, puts his team Duncanville in the lead over the host Pine Bluff Zebras. End up losing that game in a close game, but 14 points, 4 or 5 from three, a little bit different kind of player than his brother AB, a little shiftier. Gosh, his IQ on the court. I mean, a ninth grader playing at that level and doing some of the stuff he did. And we talked, interviewed him and, kind of early to really get into recruiting with him. But that's a guy, Arkansas is going to prioritize as he continues to develop and mature. Certainly want to make Texas, that DFW area, a pipeline. And it's great to get Anthony Black out of that program. All right. But then the class of 2026, Jason J.J. Andrews, 6'6" wing in a Little Rock Christian. This guy's already a 5-star. Evan, sophomore with at 6'6", physicality, athleticism, quickness, still kind of emerging from a skill standpoint when you talk about shooting from the perimeter, but his drive game with his crossovers and quickness, explosiveness, and then he attacks the defensive boards and offensive glass, both ends. He's had multiple double-doubles this year, but on Friday, on day 3, the final day of the event, he had a monster game, 33 points, 20 rebounds, 6 assists, and an overtime loss for his team. So the Arkansas kids were putting up these big numbers. Some of these games went to overtime, close games. But Jashawn J.J. Andrews is one that I think really Arkansas as a top 20 national top 20 5-star guy, part of that Team USA program already when you start looking at the mini camps and trying to be part of that national scene. He's a guy that I think Arkansas moving forward and has been and will continue to prioritize him. He's also been on campus, plans to return. He was at the Lipscomb game, by the way, in North Little Rock a couple of weeks ago. And when I interviewed him down at the King Cotton, he said he wants to get back to campus. Also just picked up an LSU offer, has several high major offers already, the Hogs included. But that's kind of a look at what some of these players were doing when Keith Smart. This is why you send your staff out on an important game week. You got to get the coaches out there and make sure they're seen by recruits and that they continue to evaluate these players, because as I see them, I get a chance to see them a lot more. And I mean, 2 or 3 weeks go by and a guy's already starting to add something to his game that he wasn't doing last month. That's how much rapid the development can be for some of these young players. We take it for granted because they're not, they're still works in progress, but some of these guys, what they bring to the table changes, in just a matter of games and weeks. And so it's always important to get out and evaluate that as a coaching staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, Terrion Burgess, good size, good length, stuff that we talk about that Muss likes to look for in some of these high school recruits. And Beckham Black, I saw some of your videos that were on Twitter, and this kid looks good. He looks legit. Like his brother now is lighting up the NBA, starting to figure out him and Nick Smith Jr. It's been a fun week for pro Hogs, but let's talk about the actual Hogs. Yesterday, a win over UNC Wilmington, 106-90. Kevin, what's your biggest takeaway from this win?
Well, several. Arkansas's won 5 out of its last 6 games. It was that 16-point winning margin. That's the biggest Arkansas's had. You got to go back to game 2 against Gardner-Webb. Arkansas won by 18 points. The 16-point win. So, you gave up 90 points. There's been, this isn't Musselman's one of his better defensive squads to this point. Yesterday was more proof of that. But Arkansas's offense has been scintillating. And when you look at the percentages, Evan, I keep writing about this. In these 5 wins out of these last 6 games, we know the loss was on a neutral court to a really good Oklahoma team. But in the 5 wins, which includes that win over then top 10 Duke and a team that's top 20 in net and, in the top 20 in the
and still top 25.
Poll. Yeah, I mean, it's a ranked team and a highly rated net team. But when you look at those 5 wins, Arkansas has a massive gap when you start looking at the efficiency both on offense and defense. Arkansas is shooting over 52% in all those games. There aren't really any outliers where there's one game that lifts those numbers. It's been pretty consistent. The same at the 3-point arc where Arkansas is right at 40%. So 3 and 2, Arkansas has held these teams collectively below 39%, even though Wilmington yesterday got to 42%, which, by the way, they came in shooting 48% overall, held them down to 42. But collectively in these 5 wins, only 38.8% shooting for teams. So can't even get to 39%. Wilmington did get over 30% shooting from the arc, 35% yesterday. So that, when you look at that, Arkansas is now holding those 5 opponents to right at 30% from 3. And it was one of only 2 out of the 5 that got out of the 20s in shooting percentage. from three. And Arkansas, again, has got that 10-point percentage-wise cushion there. So you're going, okay, 5 wins out of 6. The efficiency in shooting has been vastly better for Arkansas compared to these opponents. Why have there been so many close games? It's been those hustle plays, lack of steals, other teams getting more steals, other teams doing better in points off turnovers, other teams doing better on the offensive glass and what that looks like in second chance points. Other teams taking those live ball turnovers and getting out in transition. There's either been small margins or bigger margins in how some of these teams are finding ways to get back in games despite Arkansas having that big a cushion in the shooting efficiency. So that helps explain some of it. But again, you win by 16. You had a 19-point lead in that second half. You were down 6 in the first half. Once you got a lead, I think Devo Davis's third triple put Arkansas up by a point there down the stretch of that first half, and Arkansas never trailed again. Keon Minifield with his big 32-point in game 3, third game in, but he scored all the points in an 11-5 run to end the first half. Arkansas went up 6 and never really looked back. I mean, there was a 2-possession difference a couple of times early in that second half. Minifield scores to put up Arkansas by 9. He hits a free throw to get Arkansas its first double-digit lead.
Ready for the NFL playoffs?
He had a lob pass to Jaylen Graham.
Dramatic entrances.
At one point. And then in the final 4 minutes, he hits his third and final 3 and makes 5 of 6 field goals to keep that cushion. Again, the team's second largest, best winning margins going back to the second game of the season back on November 11th. I mean, 6 weeks or so ago. So, Minifield had his fingerprints all over this game. 5 assists. You start talking about the 4 rebounds. You look at Devo Davis, hadn't scored in double figures in 7 games, 14 points, very efficient. All 3 of his threes in the first half really helped Arkansas overcome that 6-point deficit and get things going. But when you look at those 2 guys, and Devo's 3 steals was his first multiple steal game of the season.
Beat me to it.
6 assists was a game high. The 6 rebounds led all guards and was second most on the team. And that's why I was going back to those hustle stats and how Arkansas checking up short as a team. I just mentioned 2 individuals statistically, but going back to the hustle stats, even though Arkansas didn't win a lot of them, they got even. Both teams had 8 turnovers. Both teams with 9 points off turnovers. Each team had 15 offensive rebounds. Arkansas actually had 2 more steals, averaging fewer than steals than the Seahawks coming in. 5 to 3 in that department. We know Arkansas is a good shot blocking team. 5 to 2 in that department. Second chance points +4 for Wilmington. You'll take that because Arkansas dominated the scoring inside the paint, 50 to 30 +20 there. But just going through some of those numbers, when you look at Arkansas again, 52% from the field, matching the efficiency from 3 of Wilmington at 35%. 3 fewer makes there, but Arkansas +9 in free throws, both in makes and takes. And the efficiency over 76%. That was the efficiency Wilmington came in with. And the Seahawks were closer to 71%, which was Arkansas's efficiency coming in. So Arkansas dominated points in the paint, +9 in the free throw department, and getting all those even ups in the hustle plays where you'd been losing those. Just drawing even there with the other stuff explains why it wasn't too close for comfort this time. That's how you win by 16 points. Arkansas needs more of that. Those are my big takeaways because now you jump into SEC play and, I'll use the word stuff. Somebody might use a different word, but I'll say stuff gets for real all the time. I mean, you're not going to have very many poor quad opportunities coming up, maybe 3 or 4. Most of it's going to be quad 1, some quad 2. And by the way, Arkansas couldn't afford another bad quad loss, which Wilmington's capable of throwing on you. Came in 9-2, upset Kentucky to start this month. This team was unbeaten in December. 6-2 coming in on the road, away from home, including 5-1 in true road games. So Arkansas checked a lot of boxes, a lot of big takeaways. Again, stuff gets real in a week when Auburn comes in. That'll be the first quad 1 opportunity of many in SEC play. 18 of those games, 9 on the road, 9 at home. None of it's going to be easy.
Absolutely. And to your point, a couple of things that I really like that you touched on. Musk said in his presser yesterday, the goal was why, they shot, UNC Wilmington shot 35%, but that was the plan, was to have White and to have Phillips shoot from behind the arc, hence the 28, 3-point attempts taken. And again, those turnovers, that's huge. UNC Wilmington, I think, is top 5 in the country when it comes to not turning the ball over. They're up there, and that was key. It was being able to not turn the ball over and control the defensive glass, things that we saw that Arkansas did that they've struggled with throughout this season, and they've been inconsistent. And to see all of that kind of come together again, this is a UNC Wilmington team, that went into Rupp Arena and beat Kentucky on their home court. So this wasn't just a small win for Arkansas. It's a team that it will probably be in the NCAA tournament and will probably win their division because they are that good. Trezarian White and Skyheim Phillips, they're just so much fun to watch. They were a lot of fun on UNC Wilmington. But credit to the Hogs, and really somebody that we've both talked about last week in Trevin Brazil, who stepped up this week. And he might not have had the production like many field, like Battle, like Graham, but you can still see his impact and what he can bring to this Hogs team, even if he's not, making razzle-dazzle plays every 5 minutes.
Well, and I didn't mention those guys. I should have. We talked about Minifield and Davis. I really thought it started with those guys, especially because of the first halves they had and how they continued through the second half. But when you look at Graham's season high 16 points, 7-11 from the field, made both of his free throws. Now, look, this is a guy that was not a good free throw shooter last year at all. In the 40s, 30s. I don't remember where it was. It was awful. When you look back at these last 4 games, he's averaging 10.5 points, nearly 4 rebounds a game. You'd like to see more out of that. Around 17 minutes per game. So per minute's not awful. And he's also averaging nearly 2 blocks a game. In the first 5 games that he played, because he was in and out with those back spasms, he only had 1 block. Last 4 games, he's had 7. So you look at the efficiency, you look at the free throw shooting in these last 4 games. I mentioned 10.5 points per game, shooting 75% from the field and 75% at the free throw line. So Jaylen Graham has really stepped up playing off the bench in many ways. You want to see him more consistent on the glass. He tends to get flat-footed defensively, and guys just kind of drive by him. Now, he's recovered nicely on some of those and blocked some shots, but you'd like him to be a little more sound defense. So he's still a work in progress, but he's gotten better, and he's really helped Arkansas in this run. Remember, in that 3 losses in 4-game stretch, he didn't play in one of those games. Back spasms, didn't play against Greensboro, didn't play at all in the Bahamas. So we'll look at that. Brazil had not scored in double figures in 3 or 4 games. 12 points, led the team with 8 rebounds. Efficient shooting game for him. 8 field goal attempts, 5 of 8. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a lot. I think Brazil should be 10 or more field goal attempts a game. But his 8 attempts is at least a move in the right direction. That's the 4th most he's attempted. He started all 13 games this year. So that was his 4th highest, field goal attempts when you start talking volume. It needs to keep ratcheting up, and it shows maybe he was a little more assertive in this game. 33 minutes. But it was his best game since going 19-11-2 against Duke, and that win that kind of bookends this 5 wins and 6-game stretch in a month span. That was the start of it, the Duke win, and now this game. So these were his 2 best games. And then you look, going back to Tremont Mark back in the starting lineup, 18 points, got off to a slow start, but efficient game, and really he was as much to do with as anybody of Arkansas growing that lead in the second half. He really had some big plays. There was a tip-in off a missed free throw that was just – it was a game where Arkansas got a lot of offensive rebounds, several putbacks, multiple players doing it. But you saw Tremont Mark in there with that tip-in, and so had some tough and one opportunities as well. So you like to see Tremont Mark now back in the starting lineup, but really since his injury, not playing against Duke, then he had a couple of low production games. Then he started kind of playing off the bench, but he's had multiple outings. When you look at Lipscomb, followed by Abilene Christian, led the team in scoring in both of those games. Team's leading scorer on the season, and then he comes in and has 18 points. Actually, increases what he does normally, scoring the ball in a game where 5 Hogs scored in double figures. Now, one other thing I want to mention: we talk a lot about rotation. Top rotation. Musselman in this game played 12 guys, did the submarine style substitution patterns earlier. But one thing I noticed, only 5 players played more than 10 minutes. One guy, L. Ellis, played 10 minutes. He had 6 players in double figure minutes. Caleb Battle, who got hurt after 7 first half minutes, didn't come back. Presumably he plays 10 or more minutes, right? If he plays. So that would have been 6 guys or 7 guys with 10 or more minutes. Only 5 players played more than 20 minutes in this game. So maybe with Battle, it'd have been 6 there. But in the previous game against Abilene Christian, only 7 Hogs with double-digit minutes. That had not happened in December. These last 2 games, the guys playing the bulk of minutes, it's drilling down a little bit, And even the Duke game when Arkansas played only 7 guys got double-digit minutes. But remember, Tremont Mark didn't play. That would have been a double-digit guy, and you would have been up to 8. So these last 2 games have been very different in that sense. Yeah, a lot of guys played, but look who played the minutes. So I'm wondering now, how does this trend moving into SEC play? Because I can name the top 5 easily for you when you start talking minutes. Devo Davis leads the team there. Trevor and Brazil, both of those guys have started every game. So you know they're in that mix. Tremont Mark's right there. Caliph Battle, assuming he's healthy, and we think he will be. That last night wasn't his night. He did tweak the ankle, but he's been steady and a guy that gets big minutes off the bench. And now Keon Minifield, small sample size, 27 minutes per game in 3 games. But I think it's obvious he's going to factor in to that top rotation. So there's 5. I still think Arkansas is a 3-headed monster at the 5 spot with Graham trending ahead of Lawson and Mitchell right now. But I think you might see a rotation through there. And I still think between the trio on the backcourt of Jeremiah Davenport, L. Ellis, and Layden Blocker, we may see Musselman based on matchups or wanting to play small ball, dip it into that group to kind of fill out game to game that top 7-8 rotation. So I said all that to say I think those top 5 might be static. And then you've got maybe 6 guys to choose from at the 5 spot or filling in somewhere in that backcourt to have your game to game top 7 or 8. It took me a while to get there, but I've paid attention to the minutes, Evan, the last 2 games. Really, 6 or 7 guys getting those double-digit minutes, and that's not been part of a trend until just these last 2 games. The trend's really been 10 or 11, 12 guys playing in each half, and Arkansas having 8, 9 guys double-digit minutes. So that's starting to taper off. Spent a lot of time explaining that, but it's important to say because Musselman, he prefers a top 7, 8. He really doesn't like this exploration he's been on through November and December.
Absolutely, and it's good news that you're we're down to January, and it's like everybody says, like Hog fans say, this is the time where the team really starts getting going. You saw Devo get going, and Muss even said maybe he's a game early. That might be a good thing for us, and we'll see what happens. But Kevin, anything else before we go on the Auburn game next week? What are you looking forward to that?
Well, I think Auburn's like many SEC teams. It's a deep league when you start talking about the strength of NCAA tournament net and projecting NCAA tournament. It may not be a powerful league at the top where you're talking about 2 or 3 teams pointing at them and going, that could be a Final Four team necessarily. I'm not saying that the league won't prove that out. I'm saying, but looking at it top 8 or 9, you're going, wow, these are NCAA worthy type teams. And so Arkansas gets a lot of quad opportunities there because the net rankings help back that up. Auburn's the first quad 1 option there as you start league play immediately and you get them at home. It's a veteran team, a lot of returning players. Bruce Pearl does a great job there. We know Auburn's been really strong in basketball in the league since he got there a few years ago. But you got you've got front court and back court matchups when you look at Johnny Broome. Their version of Jalen Williams, it seems like he's been there forever in that front line. These are savvy veteran guys that have been in the system. Chris Moore from West Memphis, Arkansas. They've always got really good guard play, and there's no difference there. So Arkansas is going to be challenged. This is going to be the most athletic, experienced, and talent comparable team that Arkansas will have faced going back to the Bahamas. When you start looking at, because I think Duke is a little bit different. You could throw Duke in there. I don't think Duke had the quickness that most of these SEC teams are going to have. So I'm leaving them out of this comparison. I think you got to go back to Memphis and North Carolina and the Bahamas to really find comparables, maybe somewhat Oklahoma too. But I thought Arkansas had advantages in that game athletically, but they got beat by a better team. But I think Auburn now kind of puts you in personnel shock mode a little bit because even though you've won 5 of 6, I think they just have different stuff that a lot of these teams have. So Arkansas is going to have, but it's I think the momentum is there in terms of seeing wins, getting better in certain ways. So Arkansas is going to need an outstanding game, and one of the biggest factors that plays in anything is Bud Walton Arena. It's a league game. That place is going to be packed. There's just going to be elevated stuff. And you love Devo Davis at this time of year somewhere. I know Arkansas has slow starts in league play. This team could actually flip that script. Well, they got to be better than they have been for me to fully believe that's going to happen. But I think there's a chance for it. And a few weeks ago, I would have said, wow, this team may be in for another bad slide to begin league play. And it could go that way. We'll see.
Absolutely. Only time will tell. Hogs and Tigers next Saturday at Bud Walton Arena. That's going to do it for Hogs Hoops Report. Everybody, thanks for watching all year long. We're going to have a lot of fun in 2024. That's going to do it for today. We'll see you all next week.
Happy New Year.